The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Please be seated. Well, I'm so glad to be with you here today at St. Hilda St. Patrick. I was mentioning, I think, to Tiffany and maybe even Mary earlier, that it's been about 10 plus years since I've been in this space. I think I was here for like a clergy day or something at the time, and I remember actually during one of the breaks actually coming into this space and just being gobsmacked at how simple and beautiful the space really is. This sort of buttery tone of the walls, right? And everything is better with butter, right? And the sort of bejeweled windows and a sense of the contemporary with the traditional, a sense of there being an acknowledgement of where we are in the 21st century, and yet a nod, a tip of the hat, if you will, to days of old, ancient times. And I thought to myself, this is a space where prayers are made and soaked in. To be soaking in prayers, to be steeped in prayer. That's the impression that y'all gave me a long time ago without really having ever met any one of you. And I think that in and of itself speaks to a community that understands why it exists, understands why it should be where it is. And in that understanding, there is a rootedness in wisdom. Indeed, today's readings are all about being wise, being prepared, being ready for when the Lord comes, or when somebody walks through the door, or when you meet a stranger, or maybe even somebody you really know, but you're having a fresh engagement. You're ready. You're ready to engage that person in the Lord. And I think that's what these readings are kind of focused on. Because we are in that time of the church calendar where we are in kind of a thin space. That thin space where we acknowledge that endings are coming. I mean, the end of the church year is only in a couple weeks, right? With the Feast of Christ the King, the last Sunday after Pentecost, this long green season, right? And then we have this sort of period of time parenthetically kind of made for us too, because, well, just in the last 12 days or so, we had All Saints Tide, right? Where we usher in that time where we almost poke fun and of things that are dark and death itself on All Hallows Eve. And then on All Saints' Day, we acknowledge the great cloud of witnesses. And All Souls being the acknowledgement that, well, you don't need to have necessarily the specific mark of being a saint to be a holy one, to be one that is counted as one with the Lord. So these are thin space times, that thin space between life and death, and frankly, with the collect today, between heaven and hell, the temporal and the divine, all this stuff, where we then are thrust into thinking about how we fit into that. It's true in the different cycles of our lives. People think about different things at different ages, right? I mean, when you're a kid, what are you thinking about? Go ahead, Logan. What'd you say? Gaming. Yeah. the things that are right in front of you, things that are fun, and maybe begrudgingly having to do the things that we have to do. And as you get a little bit older and getting closer into the teen years and kind of thicker into the teen years, my middle son right now is a junior in high school, getting ready for college, thinking about that, thinking about adult things. My oldest son, who is a sophomore in college right now, has been talking with the phrase adulting for a little bit now and kind of coming to those realizations of the things he has to do. And noting that just in a few years, college will be behind him and he'll be thinking about things of his own life, what he's going to be doing, and whoever he's with, how that life might get built. I can tell you at middle-aged, right? I'm trying to hold firm to trying to focus on, helping my family continue to thrive, and I'm in the middle of my career and kind of not knowing exactly how that's going to sort of unfold, especially in these times of the church. And then noting that in just, a couple of decades, I'll be thinking a lot of what many of my parishioners have thought too, about what it means to retire. And then that hopefully long period post the decision to retire to more mortal things. So it is with the church year. We begin fresh with Advent and with a babe in the manger, and then we come to this time, this thin space time. And it's here that we're reminded of, frankly, our wisdom and our folly. How have we prepared ourselves for these times? Have we just sort of assumed that things will just be taken care of, somebody else will take care of it, somebody else will do it? Have we thought to ourselves, I actually have a stake in this, and I have to do some preparation work myself? Doesn't mean I'm going to have all the answers, and it doesn't mean I'm going to be the one with all the answers, but I will know that times will change, and how will I be ready? How will I be ready like those wise bridesmaids who heeded the scouting motto, be prepared? They had extra flasks of oil. And then there were the ones that didn't. And of course, I think it's so funny, all this happens at midnight and they're told to go out to the dealers. Like there's, like a night and day mart or something like that. A 7-Eleven that's open there for flasks of oil. And of course, this bridegroom is obviously a party animal because the party starts at midnight. But they weren't ready. They weren't ready. We live in a very turbulent time. It's hard to get a sense of what is stable, what is true. We know this to be true in our world. The conflicts that are happening in our world, the wars that are popping up, Ukraine now over a year, Israel, Hamas, it's devastating. And just like those pebbles in a pond, right? That pebble creating a ripple effect of instability that goes in every direction. Is it any wonder that our government seems to be paralyzed, where we are at each other's throats politically? And it leads a lot of people into silence because they don't know what to say. And we all know, though, that silence does equate to complicity when there is real injustice that's involved. But how have we been prepared for these times? How do we dig deep into the steeping of our prayers where when the unexpected happens, we're ready. We're ready with a response. We're ready to stand firm and stand clear for love, for justice, for equity, for truth. Because you don't know when the hour comes. You don't know when you'll be called upon to have a voice and to speak and to say something, where you can't just simply retreat into the woodwork and pretend that you aren't there or don't exist or didn't hear the question. You will be tapped. And as Christ bearers, we indeed pray that we might be tapped. Pray that we might give witness to the living God. Because our world is constantly tugging us this way and that way, but then there is God's way. As our own presiding bishop has had great success with, and I totally agree with, for the last, 8 years of his presiding episcopate, that the true way, is the way of love. That we become people of radical love. And it doesn't require us to necessarily know each other or to remember each other's names or, I don't know, anything. It just requires us to be present, to be steeped in the wisdom of God's presence, and to be open enough to speak when called upon. It's amazing that I can think of that time over a decade ago, walking into this space with the buttercream walls and feeling that sense of comfort and that sense of steepedness, and that there wasn't even another person in here, and yet there was the presence of a living community, a community that has a purpose, that has a voice, that has an opportunity to love. And I sat right about where you are, sir. I remember looking out of this window, thinking it looked a lot like a Eucharistic host, circular, at the perforations where it can be broken and distributed, and noting that it wasn't that there wasn't anything on the other side, but that there was everything on the other side of it. The fact that it's a clear window, and that the clarity of the host itself is what gives us that wisdom and that guidance to be. And I marveled at the opportunity to just be. When Joseph sent me the script and the bulletin for today, I was absolutely heartened beyond heartened that you all observe like real silence. I love that. There's only one place in the prayer book, by the way, where there's a rubric about this, and it's at the fraction. A period of silence is kept. Have you ever visited other places and it feels like they just sort of blow through that? Snap! Oh! Then we're off to the races. Boom, 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 boom. Kind of like, vending out Christ from, I don't know. But that silence is there for a reason. That silence is there to be a thin space of wise listening, And it's not listening expectant that you're going to hear something, but that you won't necessarily slip into having to fill that silence with yourself and all the thoughts and distractions that are running around in your head and in your heart. To just be. How awesome is that we exist in this world to institutionally be able to provide the one thing that is so lacking in our society: silence. Deafening silence. Because it's in that space where we don't have to rush to fill it that we can also pray the classic prayer of the Kairos prison ministry, which I think is at the heart of a wise life. Listen, listen, love, love. 2 listens, 2 loves. And how amazing is it to not have to rush to give the answers when you can just be with the one who is the answer. Listen, listen, love, love.